It was a hot summer night 8 weeks ago in July when more than 80 working class people burnt to death in their own home. The survivors and the friends and family of the dead are understandably still angry. That's why we need answers and justice for Grenfell.
Oh my days. Oh my days, man. Oh my days.
So who's to blame? The answer isn't simply one or two bad apples. The causes of the inferno go much deeper. In fact, they stem from the core principles of an idea that's plagued every government since Thatcher. That idea is called neoliberalism, and it's a violent ideology. Here's why. The founding father of neoliberalism was a man called Friedrich Hayek. Although writing his major work during the Second World War, Hayek went on to become a major influence on Margaret Thatcher. The kernel of his idea was that competing private interests govern society far better than public ones. In practice, Hayek's ideology centred on three core principles: deregulation, privatisation and cuts. It was these three principles that since the 1970s turned Grenfell from a tower block into a tinderbox. In the mid-1980s, Thatcher's government deregulated fire safety standards in our homes. Her government abandoned the enforceable requirements that developers and builders should follow. Tony Blair's government was equally complicit. Having swallowed the pill of neoliberal ideology, New Labour blurred the lines of responsibility for fire safety enforcement. They insisted that the role of a fire inspector should be to inform and educate rather than to simply enforce. Over the past 3 decades, the Fire Brigade Union has lobbied government for new regulation to ensure fire safety standards keep up to speed with the changes in the use of new materials. But the principle of deregulation has kept their concerns off the agenda. It was again during the mid-1980s when the imperatives of private profit began to dominate the provision of public safety. With new legislation in 1984, Thatcher subjected building inspection work undertaken by local councils to partial privatisation. As a result, the quality of the inspections fell across the board. The privatisation of inspections created incentives for them to please their clients, in other words, the developers. Rather than conduct inspections that might delay building works or alter plans, inspectors were forced to compete for the same contracts, resulting in a more lenient approach being adopted. Britain's fire service has lost 11,000 frontline firefighters since 2010. The Fire Brigade Union has raised concerns that the service is under-resourced, particularly in regard to the availability of aerial ladders. But the pursuit of cuts goes back even further. Over the past 10 years, fire and rescue authorities have had fire safety enforcement officers cut from their service. But the Fire Brigade Union is confident that the number of fire safety officers has fallen by more than half since 2005. This has meant that the authorities have simply lost the capacity to oversee fire risk assessments. So cuts have emasculated the provision of public safety. And the same is true of police, mental health services, domestic violence services and prisons. In fact, there's no corner of society where these principles have not been felt. Deregulation, privatisation and cuts, the three pillars of a violent idea called neoliberalism. If we're really serious about learning lessons, then it's time for us to say goodbye to neoliberalism.